All right, hello everybody. So this video is going to be about coloring your animation and some settings for your Wacom tablet. It's meant to be kind of a reminder and a review of the stuff that we cover in class this week. So feel free to look at it, pause it, and kind of check out things at your leisure. If you have any questions, please let me know. So the first thing that I'd like to start with is how we kind of take an object that looks like this, your black and white animation, and turn it into something that is fully colored like this. And to do that, I have a couple examples that I'd like to show you. So as we understand, animation is basically done in a few different layers. And so there's a lot of different layers that we have. This image is just an image I found on the internet that kind of shows an example of what those layers are. You put your background on one layer, you put certain things that are animated on the layer on top, and then for everything that has different animation or animation that's moving asynchronous to everything else, you keep those layers separate, just like I have here. So we understand this much, but one of the things that might be really important take into consideration is how, like in this WODCATS example you have here, do we go about the process of adding these shadows to our work? Now, oftentimes we can just pick where we want to color them and color them in. But there's actually a little process that people use to keep it consistent in animation, and that's kind of where the term cell shading comes from. And it really involves something similar to what you see in this example from My Hero Academia, where you see that the actual shadows and highlights for the characters have been kind of sectioned off in some sections just to make things a little bit easier to see. Different sections have different colors. We're going to actually do something very similar to this just to make sure that it's easier for everybody to kind of see um, not just how to do it, but also kind of have a good example for themselves. Here's an example I have right here of SpongeBob being full color. SpongeBob's an interesting example because the backgrounds are usually painted in a few different layers, and then the character has a bunch of different colors on them. But selecting those colors and knowing what the colors are ahead of time make it a little bit easier. SpongeBob's actually produced in Toon Boom, believe it or not. And as an example, here's Inspector Gadget from the 80s, which is actually put together a similar way. This character is flat color, but you notice that for certain things, certain effects, kind of like the helicopter blades here, you can see that they've actually been blocked off with shadows too. It makes it really interesting when you get ready to layer in your artwork, even in this like really classic Steamboat Willie example, for you to actually plan where things should go and for you to actually kind of have an idea of how things look. So when you have an example in motion, kind of like this, you really see that the effects are kind of shaded in and stuff. This just gives you a way to track it as it moves. So when you fully color something, it actually looks the way it needs to look. Okay, so that being said, let me use this as an example. So there's a couple things that is really useful. The first one that you want to do is make sure that you kind of blocked off and masked off your work. I've drawn this line here to make sure that my lines are connected, make sure that my outside lines are connected as well. And what I like to do is to select all of my artwork on this drawing and go up to Drawing, Optimize, Flatten, and Drawing, Optimize, Remove Extra Strokes. What this does is take the individual strokes that I've made and kind of combine them. So if I select one, it selects everything else on the layer that's connected. Just makes things easier to use. After I do that, I circle my artwork and I go to I hit Shift 8, which is the asterisk key, um, which is also right down here, create color art from line art. You see the little asterisk key there. It's also the asterisk on your number pad. And what that does is that it creates a bunch of strokes, as you can see here. Now, your artwork has strokes. You can see those strokes with the K key. But the big difference is that in the color art layer, it basically takes the average of wherever your drawings are and it creates these little lines, which makes it easier for you to separate your color art from your line art. Another thing that's really useful, if you so choose, is to go over here to your color tab, palettes, and new, and build a new palette for your character. So let me just call this monster colors. And I'll change the colors. I'll be just picking random colors kind of for this. But what you have is now a palette that's separate from everything else. It just has the palette and colors for your particular character. So I'm going to make, by hitting this plus key, a couple different colors, and I'll name them, let's just say body, hair, gloves. So let's use these three as an example. You can double click as you've done in the past, and you have two different wheels that you can use to select your artwork. You can have a single wheel mode or kind of a multi-wheel mode. I like using the multi-wheel mode because I feel like I can get a little bit more specific with the colors that I'm using. So just for this, let's say I want to use, I don't know, let's use a purple just for now. So let's say I want this character to be purple. I'll pick purple, and maybe the hair will be kind of a lime green, high in saturation, a little bit medium in value. And then the gloves, I'd say I'd probably make I don't know. Let's go ahead and make them almost white. Uh, Maybe like a kind of seafoam color. And just for the pants to give them a little bit more interest and kind of fit the color scheme what I was doing before, I'll get a darker purple for that. It's a good rule of thumb. It's a good idea to kind of give your color palettes a range of values. So if you reduced your artwork to black and white, everything would still be pretty interesting to look at. So for this, I'm going to grab these colors, and in my color tab now, I can grab my color, grab my paint bucket tool, which is over here, and I can fill in the colors that I want for my artwork, which is really useful. I can, whatever colors I need, make sure that the character has those colors. And it's really as simple as that, to be perfectly honest. But let's say that this isn't enough, and I want to make sure that I have light and shadow in my artwork. Well, like I said before, the way that that's done is by taking the artwork that people have made and kind of masking off where you want your light and shadow to be. And so the process for doing this in kind of a digital animation program is basically taking, I'd say, the pencil tool. Now, the difference between a pencil tool is that it has that nice single stroke on it, which is really useful for what we're doing. I'm going to crank up the size a little bit just so we can see it. And take a color that you know is not going to be in your artwork. So I know for a fact I'm not going to use an ultra high saturated bright neon green. So I know I'm not going to use this. So for what I want to do, I'm going to go in my layers tab, and I'm going to draw where I want my masking to be. So let's just say, as an example, I know I want the light to kind of shine down from here. Maybe I'm going to do something like this, where I will just draw a line going across the majority of my character's body, just like so. And maybe I'll do another one here. And as an extra little note, maybe I'll do a circle here, little circle here. Make sure you connect your lines. Connecting your lines is incredibly important for this. You can hit the K key just to kind of see how your strokes are looking. And just for my character, maybe I'm going to want a couple highlights going through the face right there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And one last extra highlight here. So I have these little highlights that I've made for my character. All I need to do is go back through that process of selecting all my lines, drawing, optimize, flatten, drawing, optimize, remove extra strokes, and then hitting the asterisk key or create color art from line art. So now I have those added to my artwork. And what I can do now, maybe I want an extra body color and I want an extra hair color. So I'm going to go to body, I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. body highlight. Oops, body highlight. Okay, and let's make this hair highlight. Just like so. Okay, so using these two as an example, body highlight and hair highlight. I know I have others on here. Now we can kind of give a much more specific look to our artwork. So I can just grab certain sections that I know I'm going to have. Maybe because I made that other area, there's going to be body shadow as well. And I can add in those shadows, add in those highlights where they need to be. Let's see, we got some pants. Pants. Oops. Sometimes you got to make sure that you've kind of closed in all your artwork exactly where it needs to be. We have a little situation here that we might need to resolve. Looks like it might be right here. If you ever have a line that's not fully connected and you need to connect it, remember that you can hit the C key on your keyboard to draw an invisible stroke, and that invisible stroke will actually show up in your artwork. So if I just hold C and I draw a couple lines here, it makes that area a little bit cleaner, which makes it easier for me to connect this line art as I see fit. Sometimes when you're doing color art, you have to kind of be careful and just make sure that everything that you want to draw is connected exactly the way you need it to be. And here we go. This one's connected a little bit better now. So we'll grab that. I'll grab this here. And for the hair, highlight the hair, and then regular color hair right there. I could do one darker if I wanted to, but I'll stick with that. And then for the pants, because I know I'm going to have a slightly lighter color for the pants, I'll click that and I'll make that as well. H. There we go. Highlight for the pants, boots and pants, and then one more boots and pants shadow. Okay. So I went through this process just to make sure that all of my colors look the exact way that I want them to be. Maybe at some point I'll see like a couple colors that may not be exactly the way I want. I can always kind of change them just to make things a little bit easier. Let me see, like let's say as an example, I want these pants to be a little bit different. I can always go back into where the shadow is, and if I change the color, it automatically updates on the artwork itself. So if I'm ever working on something and I want to make sure that the artwork is as clear as it needs to be, there you go. When I'm actually done, there's a hotkey, Command Shift A, that I can use to actually select all of the artwork of the same color. So to take those like weird masked off colors that I've made, I can select the color I used as a mask. Command Shift A. Select everything there and just hit delete. Oh, make sure you're clicked in the camera window when you hit delete. And there you go, it gets off. And what you're usually left with is the clean line art for your artwork. Now, obviously in this one, not everything is colored in, but you can see that it will leave a very crisp and a very clean line. So part of this is precision and making sure that you know exactly where you want your line art to be left. In this example, I've kind of went through and I made sure that I had all my colors exactly where I want them to be, made sure the light kind of works as I need, but you're able to do the same thing. Now remember, your animation can work with just flat color. If you're interested in shadow, it doesn't necessarily take longer to do. You just have to plan ahead just a little bit for it. So when you're finished with your line art, go back in with a separate color like a hot pink or an electric green or something like that, and um, draw in your lines so you can color your artwork and then take care of it that way. Once you do that, everything else is usually good to go. So, to recap, I just want to make sure that everybody sees it and everybody has it down here. you have complete control over your art's visual design and complete control over your digital art making tools. Um, and so to get the colors you want, K, view strokes, C key, add invisible strokes to connect lines. All right, so I hope that that helps. Once you draw separate lines of color to block out your shadows, you can use your color layer to fill in the art. This is the next thing that I want to show. So going up to the menu every time you want to select your artwork and everything can be a pain in the butt. So your tablets that you have, you can actually customize to whatever settings you like. And a lot of these tablets are already kind of set up because I've had other students that are kind of working with them. But remember that you have access to everything in there. And so everything in there can be customized and fitted to do exactly what you want it to do. So I want to show you how to, in the settings inside of Mac, you can change your tablet. Now, if you have a Windows computer at home and you want to do the same thing, all you have to do, I know that there's usually your start menu and your search menu in the bottom left hand corner. Search for your Wacom tablet properties, or if you have a different type of drawing tablet, the properties for that drawing tablet. If you have any kind of buttons layout that will give you hotkeys or extra buttons on the peripheral, usually it's in your control panel in the settings or the properties for that object for you to adjust them. Now, here, I'm going to go to my system preferences, and I am going to bring up my tablet right here. And this is my tablet that I have here, and you see I have a few different types of pens and stuff at home. The one that you want to do for this, just to kind of set up your settings exactly the way that you like, you'll need to go to Functions. And once you click on Functions, up here, the one I have at home that I'm using a smaller Intuos tablet than the one you have at school, so mine has less buttons, but I'll still show you exactly how you do it. For the one that you're using at school, I recommend using the 4 bottom buttons down here, but since I only have 3 here, I'm just going to use one of these buttons as well to kind of demonstrate the same thing. What we're going to do is set up the tablet to kind of use our own keys, and using our own keys makes things a little bit easier for us. So Wacom tablet, important hotkeys, Command A, select the whole art. Shift Command F, find and remove efforts or strokes. Asterisk, create color art. G, next drawing. You can hit F and make a previous drawing button if you want to, but I'm just going to do these 4 here. So instead of always having to grab my mouse and like go up to the menu and select everything, I can just hit those buttons in order and I can wipe through a lot of my artwork at once. So I'm going to go here. Under application, I'm going to hit a new, and I'm going to find Toon Boom. Mine is called Stage. Yours should be Harmony Premium at school because I have a slightly older version of Harmony on my laptop. So I'm going to hit OK. And so now I can set keys. So these hotkeys change specifically when I'm in Toon Boom. You can set these up for Photoshop and Illustrator and every other program as well. So now that I'm in here, I'm going to go to Modifier. And just to make sure that I remember, I'll put this here to the side so everybody can see. I'm going to go to keystroke. I'm going to click this and I'm going to type in the key I want. So Command A. And I'll type the name down here. Select all. And I'll hit OK. Next one, I'll go here, modifier, and I'll go to keystroke as well. And this one, I'll do Shift, Command F. Same thing, modifier, keystroke, asterisk, or Shift 8. And the very last one, keystroke, G. Next drawing. All right, so select all, find and remove strokes, create color art, next drawing, just in that order. So now that this is set, if I'm ever going into my tablet, all these buttons will actually be set and you'll be able to see them automatically. Um, so I'm going to click out of this now. And if you go back into this program, I can show you that these buttons are actually set here. So I'm going to click them 1, 2, 3, 4 to go through my artwork very quickly. So the whole reason I'm saying this is that it can take a long time to color things unless you make it easier and quicker for yourself. So instead of having to click every individual drawing and find the tools and click them and kind of do the same repeated motions, I can go down here in my layers. I can click the first drawing, click up here, and I'll make sure I go to a new drawing when I do this. I can go select all, flatten, remove extra strokes, create color art, next drawing. And I can just hit those buttons in order and go through an entire scene and set that scene up to be colored very, very quickly. I'm actually just hitting those 4 buttons right now, one after the other, as I'm going. And it's actually creating those for me as I need them to be created. My computer's a little bit slower, as you can see. But yeah, it's creating these. And if I go back through my color art, you'll now see on every frame of animation, color art has been created. Let me turn off the render view so you can actually see it a little bit faster. There we go. So you can actually see artwork has been created. I haven't necessarily created this one yet, so I would just need to do the same thing. And as long as you go through each step of this process, you're good to go. You can make all your artwork, make it exactly the way you want, create it exactly the way you need, and the process becomes a lot easier. That's basically all you need. A couple other tips before I close this video out, just to kind of make things a little bit easier. I'm going to hit save. Some people are working on environments that are going to be the same in multiple places. There is something called your library that you have access to. Your library is a place where you can save your artwork and reuse it in different places. I'll show you as an example. If I go to Stage Library, right click and hit Write to modify, this unlocks the library. I can go inside of here and I can build a new folder. And that new folder, I can change the name of it to whatever I want. I'm going to just call it reusable scenes. And let's say I want to reuse this line art. I can click on this line art down here and click and drag the layer into this folder. It's going to give me a file name for the template, a template in the sense that I can reuse it over and over again. I can hit OK, and now it's in there, and I can reuse it wherever I want. It actually shows up in your Documents folder in your Toon Boom file. Here's where mine is, Shaw Documents, Toon Boom. Yours would be in a similar location. And here's the folder I made, and there's my artwork. So now, not only can you make artwork in a single file, but you can take individual shots, individual layers, and you can transfer them wherever you want. So if you have something that you like that you want to reuse, you can reuse it wherever you see fit. If you open up this file, it'll just be that layer by itself. Please open. Should open. I might need to save this one first. Save. All right. Open Monster Line Art template. Mine is, oh, you know what it is? I have a separate window that it's working on. I will leave it off for right now. But as I demonstrated in class, you can reopen these files and reuse them wherever you see fit. But the other thing that's really useful, if I go to File and New, and I just make a new scene, new sample, art project, hit create. I can also go to the library here, and I can, even though if the library is locked, go in reusable scenes. Locked just means you can't change things that are in there, but you can use them. Pull it in, there's my artwork. Brand new scene. Artwork is the exact same as it was before. I can use this animation wherever I want, which is just incredibly useful and incredibly flexible for yourself. In the same vein, maybe if you notice when I pulled this in, if I go to the color tab, it's actually going to bring in those colors that I were using as well. Your colors are actually located inside of the palette library folder in your project. And if you ever want to reuse colors and not have to constantly look for them and find them, you can kind of make all your colors one time and make these little palettes. And then you can either create a new folder called palettes, or you can just leave them in that folder themselves. But you can grab all of these files, copy them, or just use them wherever you see fit. And then if you ever want to pull in colors from anywhere else, you can go up to this menu button here. These little three lines mean menu. Palettes, import, and wherever your palettes usually are, I know mine are under animation projects. I can go to that file, and inside the palette library, I can open up any palette that I see fit there, so I can reuse my artwork itself. All right, so that about wraps up everything that I wanted to show for you. At this point, you have your animation skills. You know how to make composites. You know how to make good line art. Um, you're working on your animation techniques. You're practicing your art. You're trying to tell a good story. Here's how you color your artwork, and here is how you color your artwork as fast as possible. Um, the once you like kind of get started, it goes a lot faster as you see fit. But if you have any questions, send me an email and let me know. Hope this helps.